I pulled a marquise.
Wait, Andromeda kind of looks like a pillow.
We got it.
You are
You
watching the
almost see
movie.
it.
Alright. Anyways. Hello. Hello, everybody. And welcome to episode 9 of I Finally Saw, where today I finally saw the good, the bad, and the ugly. Well, yes, hello and welcome once again to another episode here. I am joined by Dayton.
What's up, everyone?
I am joined by Will.
Hey.
Everybody's throwing their hands up. And I am joined by a very comfortable looking Andromeda.
Hey, y'all.
Just full on lying down with a blanket and everything. That's amazing. Today we're talking about what many consider to be the quintessential Western, good, the bad, and the ugly. So we're just going to go ahead and introduce this movie a little bit, and to do so, as always, here is a snippet that I have copy and pasted from Google, because I am too lazy to write anything myself. The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly is a 1966 Italian epic spaghetti western film directed by Sergio Leone and starring Clint Eastwood as the good, Lee Van Cleef as the bad, and Eli Wallach as the ugly. In the Southwest during the Civil War, a mysterious stranger affectionately known as Blondie and a Mexican outlaw named Tuco form an uneasy partnership. Blondie turns in the bandit for the reward money and then rescues him as he is being hanged. When Blondie's shot at the noose goes awry during one escapade, a furious Tuco tries to have him murdered. The men re-team abruptly, however, to beat out a sadistic criminal in the Union Army and find $200,000 that a soldier has buried in the desert. So as we usually do, I want to toss it over to everybody and kind of get a gauge for how familiar everybody was with this movie. I'll start with Andromeda.
I'm sorry.
Oh my gosh.
You're asking how we feel about the movie.
No, how familiar.
I was zoning out for a
Just
second.
completely
How familiar?
gone.
I was completely gone. My familiarity with this movie, I feel like, is similar to a lot of other people's, where it's like, oh, your dad just really enjoys this Western movie, and you've heard about it, but you just never really wanted to go out of your way to watch it because it's a 3-hour movie, and that's a pretty good chunk of time to sit down and watch. So my familiarity with it is definitely that. I'm sure my dad really enjoys this movie, but I've never watched it with him. And then on top of that, we've heard this one a lot in film class of like it being a quintessential film student movie to watch.
Dayton, what about you?
For me, I knew about the movie because of the soundtrack. Because it's the iconic rooster-sounding theme. I wanted to know where that was from, and I found The Good, the Bad, and the Ugly. I haven't seen it, though. I've never seen... this is my first time I've seen it for this podcast. And, yeah, I kind of went in pretty blind.
And Will?
I'm a bit familiar. I've seen it like 3 times, I think. And I first saw it when I was like a junior in high school. And it was my introduction to the Western genre, which I very much appreciate, especially the ones made in the 60s, those spaghetti Westerns. And like Dayton said, I first heard about it from the soundtrack. So I was listening to a live orchestration of it beforehand, and I was like, oh, I should probably watch this movie.
Yeah, I mean, I think, there's so much sort of just iconography from this movie for me that I'm just like has just been incredibly pervasive. I think like Eastwood's outfit at the end of the movie with the poncho and everything. Like Dayton was sort of bringing up that song about like what sounds like the rooster, and the whole like the standoff with that song in conjunction, like if you want to make a pop culture reference, you play that song, and then you have two characters have a Western standoff. It's like that song, and then there's a song that plays when Tuco is looking for the grave. It's like that. Those two things I feel like I've heard so much, just in different places, and I don't quite remember the first time I heard that song, but I know it. But yeah, I guess in that case, we're just gonna go ahead and shift it on over to, well, actually, I don't know, Andromeda, did you have like a historical thing? Or is it just more so general stuff?
I did. I did a little bit more research about the history of Westerns in general. The Good and the Bad and the Ugly is a case we've seen before on the podcast of it not being successful upon release. And, once it's cooked a little bit more and people have sat with it, then people realize it's a masterpiece. And I think the interesting thing about this one is that Leone was satirizing westerns, and spaghetti westerns that Will mentioned are, I think, technically a subgenre of westerns because they're filmed in, they were mostly filmed in the 60s and 70s by Italian filmmakers, and The Good and the Bad and the Ugly was arguably the start of the genre. So they started making westerns because Hollywood was collapsing, and they needed cheap, easy, reliable movies, so they turned to westerns because they were really easy to just film, on location, get your story of a good guy, a bad guy, and a gunfight, and just kind of pop those out. But they were predictable, but they weren't necessarily good movies. And Leone changed that because he wanted to dig more into the morality of his characters. He's like, they can be good and they can be bad, but there's more nuance to people than just that. So he created his characters, and it's kind of up for interpretation on whether or we see Blondie is good, Angel Eyes is bad, Tuco is ugly. But I really like that Leone kind of subverted expectations, and I also find it very interesting that he utilized the American Civil War as a vehicle to show these nuances for his characters when he's an Italian filmmaker. So, I don't know that much about the Civil War, but I feel like that's an interesting choice.
It's interesting. I guess, yeah, we'll just go ahead at this point then, just throw it on over to everybody's sort of general thoughts about the movie. And I'm curious to start with Will, as the person on the panel that has the most sort of familiarity with it. What was it like revisiting it now for the podcast?
Well, it's definitely... I noticed a lot more of the close-ups in the movie, because Leone loves his close-ups in this. The movie starts out...
opens on a close-up.
Yeah. Not even on, an important character, just some random, bounty hunter.
I started bursting out laughing when I first saw that. I thought it was hilarious.
I kind of forgot about it, and I was like, oh, wow, yeah. Really hits you in the opening.
That's literally in my notes, too. I was like, movie started on close-up and then immediately went to a wide shot.
I think the soundtrack hits just as well. And I think the one scene that kind of got me again was it was the scene where Angel Eyes was in one of the abandoned fortresses. I don't remember which army it was, but he goes in and it's just him walking through it, and the music's just blasting. There's no dialogue. It's just him watching, and you kind of see what the war was like. Or something, you see all the destruction,
the toll the war had taken.
Yeah, but yeah, that's one scene that I was like, oh yeah, the soundtrack's still awesome.
Dayton, what about you?
I enjoyed it a lot. I was not expecting, whenever you're first introduced to a character like Tuco, I was not expecting, because they listed off so much bad stuff he did, which honestly, it's interesting they might not have even done it. Just based on why they are even at that point, at the point where he's going to be hanged. But I thought him this movie's length really benefited this character because it gave you the time to hate him, to start seeing why he's at the point he is, and you eventually just kind of start rooting for this character, despite even knowing he's still not a great person. He still does things he would do at the beginning of the movie, but it's more like you get where he's at.
Yeah, I see that. He almost feels in a way like I feel like he's probably I mean, he's definitely probably the character that has the most amount of dialogue in this movie. So I think he's, in a way, probably the one we're the most sort of informed about. He's the only one we get any amount of backstory about. So, yeah. Um, Andromeda, what about you?
I did end up liking this movie. I had a difficult time getting into it, and it's funny because this is a similar case of Citizen Kane for me, where I'm like, I know what everyone's opinion is on this before watching it, and I don't know if that's going to influence my personal viewing of this movie. So I watch an hour of it, and I'm like, okay, this is pretty good so far. Like, the story's going quick. I look at the time, I'm surprised an hour has passed. And then I'm 2 hours in, and I'm like checking my phone, and I'm like, I need to get off of it and pay attention. That was something I was really struggling with in the midpoint of this movie. And then 2 hours in, after, like I said, I was like, all right, I need a snack break. I need an intermission because this is too much for me. So I made popcorn and came back, and I just sat down. I got through the rest of the movie, and I did actually really enjoy it.
Yeah, I it's kind of funny, but I put this movie on the list, um, and like penciled it in as a movie, as in like one of the next movies we were going to do. And I didn't really do any research on it. I had not seen it beforehand, and it wasn't literally until I think the day before I watched it that I was like, oh, I should probably look up how long this movie is. And I was like, I was almost like jump scared. Where I was like, 3 hours. And I mean, I've watched movies close to that length before. Like, I mean, the obvious, like, recent example is, like, Oppenheimer, and I actually saw that one twice in the theater. So I was like, I recognize that, it is possible, but I think for me, it's so much harder to watch a movie that long at, like, my house. You know, like in the theater it is such a different experience to where you're just so kind of, there's like nothing else for you to do but to just be engrossed, and it is so much more inviting, I think, in that environment, whereas like in your house there's like every little background noise can be like distracting and make you aware of the fact that you're doing this instead of other things. And so that was like, yeah, I mean, it wasn't, I don't think the length was an issue for the sake of, like, the content, but I think just because of the environment. Like, I could see why this is, like, a movie that was probably, I feel like this movie probably ran on cable a lot, and I imagine that's also where, like, a lot of people probably grew up watching it, and I was like, yeah, I mean, it's 3 hours, you're gonna fill time with that, and the commercial breaks give you, like, a moment to take a breather and all that, so, but I think all in all, I did really enjoy this movie. This seems like a movie that I probably would have, in a weird sort of way, I could imagine watching this movie like over the shoulder of somebody older when I was like a kid. Like I could imagine walking in on this movie like 45 minutes in, and then just kind of getting like glued to the TV as like a dad or something is like watching this movie. And I have like I don't know, an attraction to media like that, because I mean, I think a lot of things I was introduced to at a young age was sort of through whatever like my dad was watching. You know, he used to watch, I'm sure, like the History Channel and like sci-fi, and so I caught a lot of like X-Files and Twilight Zone reruns, and so he was more so into that than I think like typical westerns. But I also think that this is like something he probably watched growing up, and so yeah, I think the thing that really sort of fascinated me is the characterization of those three titular characters more than anything with this movie, because in the eyes of the law, in the eyes of like the average individual that doesn't know those characters very well, they're all like if you were probably a person that had heard of the three of them, like you would maybe just lump them all together in one group as the same caliber of person, right? They're all outlaws and like hooligans or whatever, right? All three of them. And yet I think the movie does a really good job of exemplifying why those characters are their respective titles. I mean, you get those wonderful little title cards at the beginning and the end of the movie, and even from the get-go, I think the movie does a really good job of like showcasing, like, yeah, in a way, these guys are all outlaw bandit criminals to some degree, but there is a reason that we have distinguished them as the good and the bad and the ugly, and like just the subtleties in terms of like their moral code and all that, and the way that sort of personality contrasts. I like, I don't know, I really appreciated that. But I don't know, was there anything in regard to the characterizations or the performances in that regard that stood out to you guys?
I really enjoyed Lee Van Cleef as Angel Eyes a lot. I think the way his character was introduced was very, I don't want to say like chilling, but it was like 5 minutes of him and the other guys just staring at each other and slowly like coming together and sitting down, and then they start eating and staring at each other still. There's like almost 5 minutes of nothing, not a sound. And then they start talking again. And you get to see why he's the bad. And once he's paid, he always does what he's asked to.
He even kills the guy that initially hired him to do the job that introduces us. I mean, it's,
Mm-hmm.
and I love his voice. There's just something, this might sound like a strange thing to say. There's something about the way he says Ben Carson, where it's just like, I just completely did not do it at all justice. I was way too nasally. But there's something about like the way he says the name Ben Carson where I'm just like, there's almost like some ASMR going on here. He's got a weirdly soothing voice. Yeah. He's got like a weirdly soothing voice to listen to, and I think it ends up kind of adding to how off-putting he is. But Dave, did you want to say something?
I think the reveal that he was a Union soldier was I'm not sure what the thought process back then. I know earlier movies, a lot of them were very much more sympathetic to the Confederacy. But like modern day, it's very shocking. The guy who was considered the bad is a Union soldier.
I don't think he was a Union soldier. I think he was like playing as one, so to speak.
He was one, but he would still do outlaw stuff on the side. That's what I thought it was.
Well, I mean, I don't think the movie. I mean, even the Union. Like, there's that moment where there's like the captain who's sick, right? I believe he's a captain at the base where Angel Eyes is working, and he's literally like, I know I don't have much time left, but I hope I have enough time to get the evidence together to get you court-martialed. So I don't think they're like vilifying the Union in any way, shape, or form. I think they're very much making the point he is an outlier and a like cruel, he's not a true representative of what the Union was or something, or what the Union believed they wanted to be, so I think,
yeah, that's what I was saying.
because I think that moment with like the captain is like important for kind of distinguishing that. So I didn't realize, I had kind of assumed that he maybe sort of joined up with them as like an undercover thing at some point off camera, but I don't know, maybe he was always sort of part of that and he was doing that on the side. Yeah, that's interesting. And then, of course, obviously Clint Eastwood as Blondie. I saw somewhere on Wikipedia that he was like apparently credited as Joe or something, and I'm like, I don't know where that came from, because is he called that at any point?
No.
So this movie's it's part of a trilogy called, it's either like the Dollars trilogy or the Man with No Name trilogy, because he has a different name in each movie. And this one's technically the prequel to those movies, because you see him get his poncho, and he has those in the rest of the movies. And he's called Joe, I think, in the second one, for a few dollars more. That's what it's called.
Okay.
such a less is more approach with his performance, and I do mean that like sincerely. It is, I would seriously be interested in like tallying up the amount of dialogue he has compared to somebody like Tuco, and I mean we don't get his backstory or anything, but I think they're both like pretty equally formed characters in a way, and yeah.
That's one thing I love about this movie. It doesn't say more than it needs to, and it makes it's very much just a movie that like expects you to like it's treats its audience like it's smart and only gives them the information they need.
One thing Sergio Leone said is that the thing he didn't like about American-made westerns is that they had too much dialogue. So I think he did the less is more approach in the visual storytelling here. Like you were talking about, Dayton.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean something else about this movie that I really like is that it takes this whole I don't know how you explain it, like the whole like out of the frying pan into the oven sort of a thing. Like every time our characters get out of this like sticky situation that they have been in, they just immediately are kind of chucked into something almost worse. Um, I mean, these characters get put through the ringer. I mean, like, Blondie, like, skin is, like, cooking. Um, which I was actually really impressed. I'm assuming that they didn't just actually cook Clint Eastwood to get the shot. I'm assuming that's makeup. That makeup was like, oh, that was gross. That was great. I loved the look of like his skin like flaking from the sun. Rip Shorty, poor Shorty. Um,
Poor guy.
he didn't. God, what a way to go.
It's crazy. He turns whenever he gets hung too. He like turns around to see what's happening over with like Blondie too. So
That's gotta be rough. Um, but yeah, like they're like the one that cracks me up is when they're like when they first get captured by the Union, and they're like there's soldiers approaching, and then Tuco's like pretty certain that they're Confederate soldiers, and so he's shouting all of these things about like, praise the Confederacy, long live the rebellion, or whatever, and then they show up and they realize that they're just Union soldiers covered in dust, and Clint Eastwood's like, I think Tuco said something like God loves the Confederacy, and it's like Clint Eastwood said something to the effect of like I think God loves idiots too. When it's just like yeah, like I love that sort of a thing. It feels very like adventure in a sort of way, which is not. I do think of westerns as an adventure, but it's like I don't necessarily think of them always as like this grand journey and this whole like almost like hero's journey in a way where it's just like there's all these different challenges that they have to overcome in this way. But yeah, I mean, I don't know. Did you guys have anything else you wanted to touch on in regards to like the cinematography? I know we briefly brought that up.
I mean, I don't really know what else to say about it. Like, there's a lot of close-up shots, a lot of like grandiose wide shots, and they're great and beautiful to look at, but I don't think that they were like groundbreaking in any way necessarily. I think it's very much an expectation of the genre, but that's not, a good or bad thing.
I think one interesting part of the cinematography was the scene where Tuco is like running around the cemetery reading the names.
Yeah, that whole sequence.
Yeah, it's interesting. I love the cinematography. I know it's simple, but it's like they had the camera spinning on like an axis, and it felt like it was very much trying to like get you as dizzy as Tuco was like running around that place. So I liked that.
The whole production design of that graveyard is insane.
It's one of those times I was thinking like that's so crazy that back then they just have to build all of that, and it felt grand while it was still simple.
The the scale of that, where I was like, and it's so effective. It's so effective at like getting home the point of just like he needs Blondie to tell him, because like otherwise you're gonna be looking forever, you know. And it's so and it's like it would have been so easy to just have all those rows of graves or whatever, but then the fact that there's like just this like stone thing and it's this circle that like is just perfectly like almost, I don't even know, like growing out of that, it just the look of it and the scale of it, I'm just like it is genuinely kind of jaw dropping to see something like that today, because it remind that and like the battle by the bridge, where I was like, that whole sequence where Blondie and Tuco like find the Union army like holed up, and there's the big bridge and the Confederacy on the other side, and I'm like, there's so many extras, so much going on. I'm just kind of like, I couldn't I don't know how you begin to coordinate something like that. Like it is impressive, I feel.
Also with all the explosions.
Yeah. I was thinking of a scene, and when I was looking on the Wikipedia page for it, they mentioned The General by Buster Keaton, and that's an even older movie, but it has a very big, grandiose scene like this on a train, and I think it really speaks that, like, practical effects, I think, work a lot better than CGI, especially, like, when we're talking about modern movies. Like, you can tell that like all these people are real, and like everything was built for the scene, and in fact they actually, I think, destroyed a couple cameras in the first like attempt at filming the explosions, so they had to refilm that. But I think, again, it really does speak that everything practical, I think, makes the movie better.
Yeah, I mean, I think there's definitely situations when you're starting to lean into like the fantastical. Obviously, right? Like, but especially with something like a Western, it's just kind of like it. I don't know. Like whenever, like even something as like. And I understand like some of it is maybe like a safety concern, but I think there are ways of doing it where it's like even as something as simple as like Tuco dragging the Union soldier out of the train with him and then rolling down, and then the stunt of having the train go over the guy and cracking the chain. It's just like you feel that, and the you know, I can like with this movie, like I can almost feel the texture of the sand when the characters are like sitting down and lying in it, and it's just that I don't think there's truly a way to substitute that tactile feeling. This movie really makes me feel like I'm in the desert. I don't know how to explain it. Like I can almost feel. It's probably, I mean, it probably didn't help that it was like 80 degrees in my house today. But I was like, when they find, what's his name, Bill Carson, and he's like, water. I was like, honestly, low-key, me too, buddy. I should probably go get a drink.
Imagine the 4DX experience.
The 4DX experience. They just blast sand at you.
I've been working on like a TV show like for the past 6 weeks. I have been out in the sun for like during like 100 degrees, 107 degrees. I have been feeling that for the past six weeks, so I know what he was feeling. I felt that.
I actually felt so angry when Tuco was like toying with Blondie, and he's like, "Oh, you want water?" And then he'll pour it out, and I'm like, "Dude, this is still a scarce resource. You're still in the desert," and he's like doing all of these really devious things to Blondie, and like just, you know, so close yet so far, and I'm like, it actually made me so angry. I'm like, Tuco, just give the man water.
It's so funny to me. Tuco feels like he's constantly out of his depth, but he still wants to f*** around.
Didn't he like wash his feet with the water or something? He like washed his feet with water, then like kicked the bucket.
Yeah, he was like, drink up.
I was like, as soon as you see Blondie talking with Bill, like the real Bill Carson, you start going, going like, yes, he's gonna make it through, because you're like, you know, he has to get water eventually because of that.
Yeah, that's the funny thing is that like arguably if like Tuco had immediately put aside his greed and tried to help Ben Carson, he probably would have gotten all the information he needed, no problem. And yet he's like, so like, no, you give me the information now. I need to know now. Like that's almost what screwed him over. I mean, like, you know, and yeah, I mean the whole moment at the very end where he's like balanced. Like I genuinely thought because like, you know, that wouldn't be. I felt like that wouldn't be um unusual for the genre. I genuinely thought that the movie was going to end for a second there with just Blondie leaving him there. And the way it sort of turns around at the end, it's like it's weirdly sweet in a way. I don't really know how to explain it, but like I really did kind of fall in love, like how much of like it sort of explains like he had a messed up childhood. His brother like had the opportunity to go into study and to go into a quote unquote noble profession, and that left him alone in the desert with his parents having to fend for his family. And it's like, it obviously doesn't absolve him of a lot of the things he may or may not have done, because the movie isn't entirely clear if his reputation is like kind of inflated for the sake of trying to increase the bounty. But you know, it sheds light. It informs a perspective that he's not fully this way just because he's vindictive. But it's just funny. It's funny how he flip-flops. There's like, obviously, like when he's doing all that like buttering up of Blondie, and he's like, oh, you know, it's a shame that your family isn't here, but you know, he's like pretending to care about him at his bedside and doting on him and all these things. And it's just like, but there is like, for me, I think deep down there is like some kind of truth to all of the like poking the bear that he's doing, that like he really doesn't have anybody. And I think deep down he'll never admit it, but he just kind of does want a friend. Probably cash first, but a friend would be nice.
It's so funny. Tuco will stab Blondie in the back a lot, but like they still always just end up having to work together. And it should make you hate Tuco, but for some reason it's just so like endearing how it happens that you still like kind of like are happy they're both working together again.
Yeah. Which was like funny because I remember during the ending shootout, there was like as soon as Angel Eyes got shot, I remember being like, wait, why would have anything else happened? Because like in the moment, I'm like, oh man, who's gonna shoot who? And I didn't realize at first that like Tuco didn't have any bullets, but then I thought about it and I was like, well, of course they would have shot him in a way, right? I don't know. There's Angel Eyes as well. He's just, we talked about it, but he's a very threatening presence. I mean, there's that one, like, it's his like second scene ever is he just beats up this poor lady, and I was like, that caught me off guard.
What's interesting about that scene is that the actor, Lee Van Cleef, actually didn't want to hit the woman when he was filming that scene, and he actually had to get a stand-in to film it because he just refused to.
I mean, the scene already doesn't start off on a great note, where it's just kind of like these guys chuck her off the back of the wagon. And I was almost expecting her to be a bigger character than she wound up being, because of the way that whole scene is filmed. But it's like, that was the thing that sort of, that's another thing with this movie, is that like characters that wind up being incidental, in a way, he's like the movie still kind of takes like the moment to be proper in regards to introducing these characters. Because there's like the three bandits that are like Tuco teams up with, And they get this like whole introduction where they descend. There's like the lady who gives Angel Eyes the information. There's like the general or the captain that they meet at the Union thing who's just like a drunk. And he's got this like whole monologue about how like even so much as dreaming to blow up the bridge is worthy of getting arrested or court-martialed or something. I don't know. I don't know about is there any one of those like random side characters in this that really kind of stand out to you guys?
The guy that owns the gun shop, right?
Oh yeah, that scene was so good. Yeah.
That's such a good scene.
He leaves him the whiskey.
I was thinking the entire time, like, what is stopping this guy from like selling to anybody, and that person just like using the gun to steal, and then he steals it.
Another thing about this is that I think a lot of like some of those side characters were Italian, and you can tell that they were dubbed, like in English.
Oh yeah.
In their scenes, because that's one thing about his movies is that a lot of those characters are dubbed. Yeah.
That was something I noticed throughout this movie is like, especially like, I think it was like, because it's not a lot of dialogue in the beginning, so you don't really notice it, and then eventually I was like, wait, why is like so many of these characters dubbed? So many of the characters in this movie are dubbed, and it's really interesting because I've never. This is not a great comparison, and I don't mean to insult good and the bad and the ugly when I say this, but I think the last movie I saw that had this much ADR was probably like Madam Web. So I was just like, I was wondering about that. I was like, I wonder why there's so much, like, was it just the mics were really bad? But it was just like, oh, so it was like Italian actors, and they wanted a more, I don't know, like American sound, Western sound to them.
I believe so.
That's really interesting. Yeah, I love the scene with the gun shop. That whole sequence is so much fun. It's almost like a little short film in its own, where it's just like when he goes out to the shooting range and the way he like takes these guns apart and builds like his own preferred gun, and like the poor old man is just so tired. And he just seems like such a chill guy in a way.
Tuco had no reason to put the close sign in his mouth. None at all.
What was that about?
He was like...
I like to think that was improv.
He was just genuinely drunk. He thought it would be funny. Yeah, I don't know. It's I'm really curious about like the sound too, because like the musical sound. I don't know, how much do you guys know about the score? Because I don't know a whole lot, and I know we brought it up, and I do think it's excellent. But like, I really would be curious to learn more about the creative design and process of making the score for this movie, because this feels like ground zero almost for what like I think of musically when I think of like the West, the Old West. Like when I think I want music, like, you know, if I want music for the Old West, like this is like ground zero in terms of inspiration for me.
I think it's funny because, to my understanding, Leone had a conversation with Morricone, the composer, and he's like, alright, I need a score that sounds like two guys in their grave laughing at what they've done. And that's like what was the inspiration like for the rest of the score.
I think he played the music on set too as they were shooting. And
That's so cool.
and the music was written beforehand.
Yeah, I mean, like, is that just an acoustic guitar, or is that actually an electric one? I can't tell, because it almost sounds electric at certain points, and I'm like, that's such an interesting. If it is, I don't know, it may not be, but if it is, that's such an interesting choice, because I would not think of that at all for the Old West. I just like with the vocalizations and everything, it just captures. I mean, it's not the, what's that TV show, The Lone Ranger? Like, The Lone Ranger is very much like, it feels almost like, it reminds me of like what, like the A-Team theme song, where it's just kind of like this big bombastic, like we're on horses and everything, and it's just like, this to me much more kind of captures the idea that I think of the Old West, which is like a period of lawlessness, period of desperados and drifters, coming in and out, and not as clear-cut heroes as we would like, in a nation that's kind of fractured and trying to piece itself back together. And yeah, I mean, two guys in their graves laughing at what they've done. I think I'm curious if this is like, I'd be curious to pay more attention to the soundtracks for other westerns going forward and see like where this sort of dates back to, because it's a sound that I think is really iconic. I think that's the most of what I wanted to talk about. I don't know if you guys had anything else you wanted to touch on.
One little part I wanted to quickly talk about was right after the shootout, after Blondie shoots the noose off of Tuco, and he sees Blondie running away on his horse. He like screams at him, and it's perfectly cued with the music, like the music vocalization, and it's like it just cuts to an extremely wide shot of Blondie on his horse, and that's like the ending of the movie. I thought that was perfect little moment there.
I liked how much was set up for like the final, like for like a lot of stuff in the finale. Like I loved I mean, obviously, I feel like none of us thought he was gonna like actually hang, like actually let Tuco like hang there. We knew he was gonna shoot him down, but I think it's really cool that we kind of just knew that just because that's what they used to do before. And also it was set up with how Tuco was trying to get Blondie killed that way by hanging himself.
That was kind of the beauty of watching it for the first time for me, because there's that and like the shootout scene, because like your questioning was like, oh, what's gonna happen here? Like, I waited 3 hours for this. This better be worth it. But yeah, you get those two little scenes next to each other.
I remember I felt so proud of myself watching this movie because I called Blondie's plan. Because I saw, like, as soon as I saw that the grave next to... What's the name that he gives off?
Arch Stallion, I think? Arch Stallion, Stanton, that's it.
Arch Stanton, that's what it is. So he's like, it's the Arch Stanton grave, and then Tuco starts digging. And I started to think about it, and I was like, I saw the unknown grave, and I was like, is it going to be that, like, that is the name that he gave, but that the guy said something like, it's the grave next to Arch Stanton? And then when that turned out to be the case, I started popping off, because I was like, I knew it. I was like, there's no way he's too smart to genuinely give Tuco the answer. But what I wasn't expecting is that he literally just didn't write anything on the rock. And obviously it wouldn't have made for a good ending to the movie, but there is a part of me that almost wants to have seen, like, if Blondie had died. Just what a like hilarious, like, last from beyond the grave, like, rug pull. Just like, you've done all of this nonsense after all this time to get it, and it's just like, finally, here's the answer, and it's just a blank rock. I would just let the sun cook me until I die after that. Like, I would just be like, dog, I'm not digging all these graves. Like, but yeah. All right, well, I guess at this point then we can just go ahead and start transitioning into closing thoughts, and yeah, starting with Dayton then, as we usually close off with this question. Would you recommend this movie to folks?
Yes, I would. I don't know how, like, if somebody, it depends on their taste, but I feel like if you want, like, it's always like, what's the Western to watch? It's the good, the bad, and the ugly. It's kind of a boring answer, but it's like, it's the answer. I feel.
It is the answer for a reason. Will, what about you?
Yes, I think it's a great introduction, I guess, to the Western genre as a whole, not just to spaghetti Westerns. Because I know it's a subgenre, but, like, still, like, it has so many movies parody has like little western scenes that kind of parody this film, and like even use parts from the actual soundtrack. So yeah, I would recommend this movie to people.
And then Andromeda, what about you?
I definitely would recommend this movie. However, 3 hours is a long time, so be prepared. But also, like, how could you not watch this movie? Like, you've heard the score for it, like, for sure. Like, you might as well just watch the movie, get, you know, another great movie under your belt, watch some really interesting characters, interesting storytelling, great cinematography. Like, I think you're doing yourself a service to watch it. Also, if it's playing in a theater near you, that will be a lot easier and a far better opportunity for you to watch it.
Oh yeah, yeah. And speaking for myself, yeah, I would totally recommend this movie. I think it is probably as perfect of an introduction to what makes the genre so beloved as you could possibly get. Yeah, I think the characters are really kind of intriguing. I love stories that just drop you into a world and like make you feel like there's a bigger universe and a bigger bubble than just the one that we're seeing in this one installment. And this very much feels like this. This feels like a character, like Eastwood's character in this feels like one that has probably like decades worth of adventures, even though there's only like 3 movies. Like I could imagine like 5 seasons of the Tuco and Blondie show where they just like always somehow wind up teaming up with each other, even though they have an incredibly dysfunctional relationship. And yeah, I think the music is great, and it is just, I think, the baseline for so much of what is beloved and well known in this genre. So yeah, I think I would absolutely recommend it. And like I said, the runtime is daunting, but I don't know, take like a Sunday evening that you have the time for it, draw the curtains and just get comfortable with it. Maybe take a snack break halfway through, and for sure, check it out. But on that note, that's going to wrap it up on this episode and this discussion. So thank you all very much for watching. I love you all, and good night.